Hello there, Crafty Doer. Jessica Michaels here from the Crafty Doings for a Cherry on Top and Technique Tuesday. This month's technique is ink blending, and for this technique I will be using Yupo cardstock paper, Catherine Pooler's Love Stack layered stencils, and Cartabella's Be Mine sticker sheet and a couple of single sheets, as well as Distress Oxide in Everbow, Distress Oxide, and Forest Moss. So grab a comfy chair, grab all your crafty things, and let's get into the crafty doings. I have already sized down my scrapbook base, and I'm going to begin the ink blending process, starting with a little forest moss. Now, the reason why I chose to use a non-porous surface like Yupo cardstock is for this technique, which is ink lifting. So before we get into that, let me begin by heavily ink blending some of this forest moss in the center towards the left of my layout. I already have an idea of what I want this layout design to look like, so I know that this is where my pattern paper strips are going to go. So I'm not going to focus too much on this side, and I am going to focus on the right side. Now, using this ink blending on a non-porous surface can get a little tricky, but can also be very helpful. Now, when you ink blend on a regular piece of paper, you tend to start heavy either on the edges or the center, depending on your design, and then you kind of fade out towards the end, correct? Well, when you ink blend on a non-porous surface paper like Yupo cardstock, you have to ink blend backwards. So what I mean by that is I'm going to add some Everbow here, and then in order to get that fading effect towards the end of this ink blending, I'm going to push the ink towards the center of the paper. Because it is a non-porous surface, the ink easily moves around, but it does a beautiful job, I think, really blending those colors together. Once I am happy with the ink blending, I'm going to dive right into the Love Stack layered stencils. And the technique I'm going to use is ink lifting. Simply grab a paper towel or cloth and spritz some water on it and begin lifting the ink through the stencils. A couple tips. Number one, do it very slowly, because if your paper towel gets caught in the stencil, you're going to smudge it under, and it's just going to look like a big old smudged mess. And tip number two is to constantly rotate your cloth or paper towel so that the colors aren't mixing up. Once I'm done with the first stencil, I'm going to move on with the stencil number 2 and finally stencil number 3. I did my best to color match the Distress Oxide with the Cartabella Be Mind collection. So I'm going to put down some Everbow on my glassworking surface, dilute it with some water, and splatter it here and there. I'm going to very quickly dry it with my heat drying tool because I don't want the Yupo cardstock to warp. Then I'm also going to splatter some water on the Distress Oxide so that Distress Oxide can do what Distress Oxide likes to do, which is oxidize. Once again, I'm going in with my heat drying tool, not too long because I don't want to warp the Yupo cardstock. In fact, I got the idea of grabbing my paper towel roll and lifting all that excess water and diluted oxide off my paper. I get a little impatient, so I try to fast forward the process often with my paper projects. Do you? The last thing I'm going to do is ink blend the stencil number 3. This is 1. Stencil number 3 on top of the faded edges of my ink blending using Everbow Green. I think using multiple ink blending techniques on one project really adds some fun, depth, and interest. In fact, if you're looking for yet another layer of ink blending, you can totally spritz some water on the ink that is on the stencil and place it down onto your paper for a little reverse stenciling. One of the things that I absolutely love about scrapbooking 8x8 is that I don't often have to use a lot of product. So for my pattern paper strips, I end up using the branding strip, except for this piece, which I did end up having to trim off of a 12x12. But once I remove the white edges from it, I'm going to simply adhere it down to my paper and give it that effortless look, as if I just tossed my paper onto my desk and it just so happened to fall that way. I haven't printed my photos yet, so I'm going to use these photo mats so I can visualize my placement and dive into embellishing. I'm going to lean heavily into Cartabella's Be Mine sticker sheet for this layout. I fell in love with this piece from the sticker sheet. It says, "Hello, I love you." And I'm scrapping my 2 little girls meeting their baby brother for the first time. I can't figure out the placement for this tag without covering the sentiment, but I really want to make it work because I think it really works for this layout. So I'm going to add a little bit of red twine and slide it right at the bottom here so that it looks like it's kind of scaffolding down. Okay, I'm going to use these banner strips from the sticker sheet, but I'm going to multiply them by simply cutting them in half and then trimming the bottom of that half to make it look like the rest of the banners, like the bottom portion of the banner, because I want enough pendants to loop across the page. I'm going to clip off the hanging pendant here on the edge of my layout, And I will continue to use this red twine, which is from my stash, by the way. But the way I like to adhere twine in this manner is by letting it fall organically and adhering it as it falls. Sometimes, however, I do want an extra loop or wave, and that's okay. I can maneuver the twine and add some glue to make it stick that way. I'm going to focus on embellishing with pink stickers and black stickers to accent the sentiment on that tag. In order to balance that black, I want to add it up here and also diagonally to the bottom right hand corner, with a tiny little black bow sticker that will hang on the bottom of the tag. I am ready to date my layout by using this point planner date roller stamp by American Crafts. I end up having an oopsie, but I would love to share how I fixed it. I even tested on a separate piece of Yupo paper that I have here on the side, where I was testing combinations of Distress Oxide. What ends up happening is that half of the stamp is landing on the strips of paper, which has a lift, and the other barely reaches the scrapbook base. So I end up smudging it, but it's no big deal. In fact, I do this quite often. And my fix is I grab a separate strip of paper, stamp the date on that, and then trim it and adhere it right on top of my oopsie. No one will ever know. It will look like the date is an embellishment. It was intentional the entire time. One last thing I do end up doing off camera is adding a handful of red enamel dots. I also reach for the leftover branding strip where it has the title of the collection, which is Be Mine, and I end up adding it here on the left under the other sentiment strips. Thank you so much for watching. I truly do hope that you were inspired today to use this technique. Let me know in the comments below if this technique is new to you. You can find the list of supplies in the description box below. You can find me at The Crafty Doings for more mixed media paper craft inspiration and encouragement. Until the next crafty doing.